It has been said that Paris has the Eiffel Tower, New York has its Statue of Liberty, and Sydney has its Harbour Bridge. Johannesburg now has the Nelson Mandela Bridge. Hello, and welcome to our practical real-world lesson on choosing a ratio. In this lesson, we will look at the Nelson Mandela Bridge and use trigonometry to find out interesting information about this amazing bridge. By the end of this lesson, you should be able to convert information into a maths equation and decide which trig ratio to use to find the length of a side. Do you recall the three trig ratios that we have learned? Sine alpha is equal to opposite divided by hypotenuse. Cos alpha equals adjacent divided by hypotenuse. And tan alpha equals opposite divided by adjacent. In the last lesson, I said that if you remember SOHCAHTOA, you will remember your trig ratios. Remember, work with the first letter of the ratio and the first letter of each side. Now, let us use SOHCAHTOA to help us find the length of a side. What have you heard about the Nelson Mandela Bridge? Let me tell you what I know. The bridge was opened in 2003 in the Johannesburg Newtown area. The opening of the bridge aimed to revitalize the Newtown area, thereby making it a recognized place for creative industry. The bridge links Braamfontein to Newtown, giving people direct access to the Newtown area. The bridge was named after the amazing former president of South Africa, Nelson Mandela, as a way of recognizing and thanking him for all that he has done for our country. Now, this is the maths of the bridge. The bridge is 284 meters long. There are two pylons which are large vertical tower-like structures supporting the bridge. The Nelson Mandela Bridge has a pylon on the north side and a pylon on the south side. The south pylon is 27 meters above the deck. Now for our trig question. The north pylon stands halfway across the bridge. The angle from the start of the bridge on the south side to the top of the north pylon is 17 degrees. How high is the north pylon? As always, remember, we have to draw a triangle and then fill in the information that we know. We need to find the height of the north pylon. So let's start by drawing it. What do you know about the angle between a height and the ground? The height is always perpendicular to the ground. So the pylon is perpendicular to the bridge. Now, if we join the start of the bridge to the top of the pylon, we get a right-angled triangle. The bridge is 284 meters long, and we know that the north pylon is halfway across the bridge. So this side is 142 meters, and the angle from the start of the bridge to the top of the pylon is 17 degrees. Now let's celebrate Madiba and label the triangle NLS as an abbreviation for Nelson. In triangle NLS, the height of the pylon is given by NL. How do we calculate this height using trig? Well, the given angle NSL is 17 degrees. How do we label the sides of this triangle in terms of this given angle? What do we call side LS? LS is right next to the angle, so it is the adjacent side. And what about side NL? It is opposite angle S, so it would be the opposite side. Okay, now which ratio can we use? Which ratio uses the adjacent and opposite sides? Think soccer tour. It is the tan of an angle that is equal to opposite divided by adjacent. So we use tan 17 degrees. Tan 17 degrees is equal to opposite divided by adjacent. Therefore, tan of 17 degrees is equal to NL divided by 142. Now the rest is easy. We have to solve for NL. Multiply both sides of the equation by 142. So 142 times tan 17 degrees is equal to NL. Use your calculator to find the answer. You should find that the answer is 43,4 meters. So the height of the north pylon NL is equal to 43,4 meters. Now do some research and read about the Nelson Mandela Bridge. Try to get hold of newspapers or magazines, or perhaps you are fortunate enough to have access to the internet. In your research, you will find that the actual height of the north pylon is 43 meters. Trig is really amazing, isn't it? Time to recap what we have done so far. We used SOHCAHTOA to decide which trig ratio to use. We knew the length of the adjacent side and needed to find the length of the opposite side. So we decided to use the tan ratio, opposite divided by adjacent. Now, many people use the bridge for shooting movies or for hosting parties. Let's imagine that someone wants to string lights from the top of the north pylon to the south end of the bridge. How long must the string of lights be? Well, on the diagram, that means that we want to find the length of NS. How would you do that? Because triangle NLS is right-angled, you have two options. We know the lengths of two sides. So, you could use the theorem of Pythagoras. In this triangle, NS is the hypotenuse. So, NS squared will be equal to NL squared plus LS squared. But what else could you use? You could use trig ratios. NS is unknown, the hypotenuse, and you could use LS as the known side. What ratio uses the hypotenuse and the adjacent? Cos of 17 degrees is equal to adjacent, 142, divided by hypotenuse, NS. Or you could use NL, the opposite side that we solved for. Which ratio uses opposite and hypotenuse? Yes, it is sine. So we have sine 17 degrees is equal to opposite 43,4 meters divided by hypotenuse NS. Remember that once we have the lengths of two sides of a right-angled triangle, we have options. Why don't you try different methods and see if you get the same answer? Now, on to another magnificent South African feature. Cape Town is famous for the majestic Table Mountain. Local and foreign tourists love going up in a cable car to see the view of the city and the ocean. Now it is your turn to do some investigation about the cable car. The cable car climbs at 40 degrees to the horizontal. The length of AB is 60 meters and the length of BC is 40 meters. Calculate the value of this height and this height. You need to calculate two increases in the vertical height. First, when the cable car ascends from A to B, and then when it ascends from B to C. Copy this picture carefully as there are two triangles to work in. As we wrap up this series, let's recap what we have learned. The word trigonometry comes from two Greek words, trigonon meaning triangle and metron meaning measuring. In a right-angled triangle, the ratio of height to horizontal distance remains the same if the angle remains constant. Sine alpha is equal to opposite divided by hypotenuse. Cos alpha is equal to adjacent divided by hypotenuse. Tan alpha is equal to opposite divided by adjacent. And of course, Soccer Tour helps us to remember this. I have been amazed by seeing how trig can help us to solve real-life problems. Now, in closing, join me in watching this show of scenes of heights and distances and lengths. From me, Reno, bye-bye until next time. How high is that? How wide is that? I wonder how long that is. Gee, that is high. Eish, that is high. I wonder how high that is. Oh, that's fun. How far away it looks. Abseiling? How high is the cliff? So, how high is that mine dump?